Hi there and welcome to Ian's Engage channel. I'm Ian. In a previous video I showed how I'd added DC power to my test track. In this video I'm going to show how I installed an NCE Powercab to get the test track working on DCC again. Those who have been following along will know that the Wi-Fi of my DigiKeys DR5000 control station has stopped working. While this hasn't prevented me from running the test track on DCC, controlling the trains via the Windows interface has been a complete pain in the posterior. While I've got a new Wi-Fi module for the DR5000 on order, it may be a while before it comes back into stock. So I decided to press my NCE Powercab into action. This would be a temporary installation as the Powercab wouldn't be ultimately powerful enough to run Shelvington once it was complete. Because it would be a temporary installation, I didn't want to start cutting holes into the baseboard frame in order to install the Powercab's interface panel. So I had to think of a different solution. What I decided to do was attach the interface panel to a small balsa wood sheet, and then screw the sheet to the baseboard frame. My plan was to add the sheet to a leg, where it would be located close to a power strip and also had easy access to the DCC bus. To attach the interface panel to the balsa wood, I needed to cut a hole in the sheet. I'd already measured the interface panel, so used the measurements to mark a suitable location for the hole. As the sheet was made from balsa wood that was only 2mm thick, I figured that I'd be able to cut through it using my utility knife. I took my time, making multiple score marks along the lines until I'd cut through the wood. I kept checking the back of the wood to determine whether or not I'd cut all the way through. Eventually, I was able to pop the cut section out to reveal the hole. Being only 2mm thick, I was worried that the balsa wood may not be strong enough to handle frequently plugging cables in and out, so I decided to double it up. I used the hole in the first sheet as a template to mark up a second sheet. After a quick change of utility knife blades, I used it to score lines into the new sheet of balsa wood. Eventually, I made it all the way through and the second hole was revealed. Next, I did a very quick test fit to see if the interface panel would fit through the holes. Blink and you'll miss it. I was happy with the fit, so I decided to glue the two pieces together using Gorilla Wood Glue. I may have applied a little too much glue, although by the time I'd spread it out, maybe I hadn't. Next, I used a scale model scenery jig to make sure that I had both of the sheets aligned properly. I used a couple of pieces of packing paper to keep the glue away from the jig and some engineering blocks to weigh down the sheets and help with the alignment. Once the glue was dry, I removed the sheets from the jig and was pleased to see that the packing paper had done its job. There was only a minimal amount of glue leakage, but the packing paper had stopped the balsa wood from sticking to the jig. After a quick clean-up with the utility knife, I test fitted the interface panel again and had intended to file down any imperfections. But it was a perfect fit, so there was no need to reach for a file. While I had the interface panel in place, I used it to mark up where the screws would be placed to fix it to the balsa wood. I then used my nifty little USB powered drill to make some small pilot holes for the screws to make sure that the wood wouldn't split while driving them into position. I then found some small screws and fixed the interface panel to the balsa wood sheets. Next up was some wiring. The interface panel came with a convenient plug that had terminal connectors to screw in the bus wire. I decided to use 16 AWG wire, which was the same gauge as my DCC bus, and added a couple of short pieces to the plug. I then inserted the ends into a spring connector and clipped the plug into the interface panel. It was then time to take the whole assembly to the train room. I'd already decided that I was going to screw the interface panel to a leg of the baseboard frame, so held it in place while I worked on whereabouts it would be best to position it. I wanted to make sure that the circuit board of the interface panel itself was held away from the leg, so temporarily fitted a spacer to the leg and held it in place using a small clamp and some masking tape. I then moved everything into position and marked where I intended to place the screws. I then took the whole assembly back to the workbench and measured up more accurately where the screws would go. Next, I used the nifty USB drill again to drill some pilot holes. It was then back to the train room again, where I used a clamp to hold everything in place while I used a bigger drill to drill through the pilot holes and into the baseboard leg. Finally, I screwed the balsa wood sheets to the leg and was pleased how easy it was to access the interface panel, both from the front and the rear. I had to laugh at myself though when it came to removing the spacer plate I'd added. I couldn't work out why it wouldn't drop away once I'd removed the clamp, but of course I'd also used masking tape to secure it to the leg. So I had to unscrew everything to remove the masking tape and start again. Once it was back in place, it was time to wire the interface panel to the DCC bus. Because of where I'd located everything, near to the DR5000 control station, all I had to do was unclip the DCC bus wire and attach it to the wire tail I'd added to the interface panel. Using spring connectors was convenient, as it would allow me to quickly switch between the Powercab and the DR5000 when I needed to. The final task was to plug in the Powercab controller, switch on the power and see what happened. A quick instruction to my trusty Amazon assistant: turn on Shelfington. And Shelfington and the Powercab was powered on and ready for action. I wasn't at all familiar with the Powercab controls, but even without looking at the manual, it was fairly obvious how to add a loco address and start playing trains. Here, I've added my Class 33 and am ramping up the power and then turning on the lights. And look at that, the train pulls away, and I'm back up and running on DCC with a throttle in my hand. Hurrah! At this point I should really apologise for the tapping sound in the background of these running shots, but it's absolutely chucking it down outside and the rain is pounding against the train room window, so sorry about that. Okay, so that's about it for this update. If you've got any hints, tips, useful tools or techniques to pass on to a beginner in N-Gauge modelling, or if you simply want to say hello, then please do so in the comments section. Anything and everything you've got to say will be greatly appreciated. In the meantime, thanks ever so much for watching. Hopefully I'll have another update on my progress soon. Bye.